The mahogany table was polished to a mirror shine, reflecting the cold, hard faces of my family. My father's empty chair at the head felt like a hole in the universe. The air was thick with the smell of old books and greed. My brothers, Mark and David, sat across from me. They wouldn't meet my eyes.
For 15 years, I had sat at this table for company meetings. I had saved this company from ruin.
The lawyer cleared his throat. He read the legal words that cut deeper than any knife. To my sons, Mark and David, I leave the entirety of my estate. And to my daughter, Clara, I leave nothing.
Nothing. Not a dollar. Not a memento. I was being erased.
Mark allowed himself a small, ugly smirk. David studied the tabletop, a fake look of pity on his face. The next morning, the office felt different. The employees I had hired, the team I had built, they all looked away as I walked past.
They knew. My assistant was crying. I told her to be strong.
I was heading to my office when Mark stepped out of my father's, now his, office. "Clara," Mark said, his voice loud and false, "we need your keycard and company phone. Effective immediately, your employment here is terminated."
I felt the eyes of the entire floor on me.
"On what grounds?" I asked.
The grounds that this is our company now, and we don't need you.
I took the keycard from my lanyard. I placed my company phone on the reception desk. As I walked through the familiar halls, I didn't hang my head. The glass doors slid shut behind me. The anger was no longer a fire. I didn't go home. I went to a quiet coffee shop. My husband, Tom, found me there an hour later.
He didn't ask questions. He just listened. That faith was my anchor.
I still had my brain, my contacts, and my secret weapon, knowledge. They think they've won. But the game hasn't even begun. My first call was to old Mr. Peterson. Peterson Manufacturing was our biggest client. They accounted for 30% of revenue. I knew Mark had been taking him for granted, jacking up prices. "Mr. Peterson," I said, my voice steady and confident. "It's Clara Harrison."
He was silent for a moment.
"I heard what happened, Clara. A damn shame. I'm starting my own firm, Phoenix Ventures. I can offer the same quality for 20% less. Because I'm not greedy. I know their cost structure. I know you're being overcharged. Send me the contract, Clara. Let's talk." The first domino had been pushed. They wouldn't see it coming until it was too late. This was just the beginning. Clients were one thing, but a business runs on its people. My next target was Sarah Lynn, the brilliant, quiet operations manager my brothers always ignored.
They're running the company into the ground, Clara. The morale is terrible.
I'm not asking you to sabotage them, Sarah. I'm asking you to build something new with me.
Come be the COO of Phoenix Ventures, 5% of the company. She didn't even need to think. Next was Ben, the lead accountant. He brought 2 of his best analysts with him. My brothers were the face, But we were the engine. And now, the engine was mine. The phone calls started a month later. First, it was David.
His voice was a panicked screech. Peterson just canceled his contract. He's going with you.
It's a free market, David. He chose the better offer. Then it was Mark. He tried to be the tough businessman. We'll replace him. He couldn't. I was poaching all their mid-level clients too. Then he realized his staff was gone.
Where is Sarah? Where is Ben? What did you do?
I didn't answer. I just hung up. He couldn't. I was poaching all their mid-level clients too. Then he realized his staff was gone. A year to the day after my father's funeral, they called me back to the mahogany table.
The office was a ghost town. Empty desks, silent phones. The air was stale. Mark and David looked like different men. Their expensive suits hung loosely. Their eyes were hollow. "We're bankrupt," Mark said. "The creditors are taking everything. The company is gone." They looked at me, expecting pity. They found none. "You won," David said. "You destroyed us." I felt no joy, just a cold, clean satisfaction. "I didn't destroy you. You did that yourselves." I just stood back and watched. And I built something better. This was never about winning. I turned and walked out, leaving them with the silence and the ruin. The silence in my penthouse office was deafening. I had just annihilated my brother's company. Phoenix Ventures was soaring. Yet as I stared at the city lights, I felt only vast, echoing emptiness. The fiery rage that had fueled me for a year had burned out, leaving behind only cold, gray ash. I had envisioned this moment 1,000 times, each fantasy filled with triumphant satisfaction. I looked at my reflection, a powerful CEO, but the eyes staring back were my father's, cold and alone. The revenge I had planned wasn't a cleansing fire. It was a poison, and I had drunk every drop. I had won the battle, but the war had cost me my soul. The victory party felt like a funeral.
And I was the only mourner.
A week after the bankruptcy, a small, crumpled envelope arrived at my office. It wasn't a legal document. It was from my niece, Sophie. A stick figure family with crying faces, wobbly crayon letters asking why Daddy is sad. My breath caught in my throat. I had never pictured the fallout. The children's faces haunted me. My brothers were arrogant fools, but their children were innocent. My revenge had invisible victims. The sleek, modern lines of my office suddenly felt sterile and cruel. The money, the power, the success felt meaningless, stacked against the tears of a child I used to bounce on my knee. The true cost of my win was just beginning. And the price was far higher than I ever imagined.
Seeking a distraction, I decided to finally clean out my mother's old things from the attic.
In a dusty corner, I found a wooden crate filled with her belongings. My hands shook as I opened the oak recipe box I'd made for her.
Clara's favorite chocolate chip cookies, one card red, with a tiny smiley.
I could smell her perfume and hear laughter echoing from the past. I sank to the dusty floorboards, cards scattering around me like leaves.
I didn't cry for money or company. I I wept for lost birthdays and laughter.
My revenge hadn't brought her back. It only destroyed the last pieces of family.
I couldn't get Sophie's drawing out of my head. The guilt was a constant ache. I dug through old albums and found the photograph Mark had given me.
I had it framed and placed on my desk, a painful reminder of loss. A month later, my assistant buzzed, voice hesitant. "Your brother Mark is here."
He looked like a ghost of his former self. Arrogance gone, only weary shame. He didn't speak for a long moment, just stared at the photo on my desk. "I kept a copy of that too," he whispered. "David looks at it every day." He wasn't there for anything. The bridge between us had one fragile plank. Mark's visit forced me to see the full, ugly truth. My victory wasn't clean. I hired a discreet investigator, not to dig up more dirt, but to understand the real aftermath of my actions. The report was a brutal, unvarnished account. David had sunk into a deep depression, barely leaving his cramped apartment. Mark was working 80-hour weeks driving a truck to keep his family afloat. Their children were being bullied at their new, underfunded school. The weight of this knowledge was crushing. I sat in my luxurious office, surrounded by symbols. The revenge I had served was so much colder and more brutal than their initial betrayal. I had become the villain of my own story.
The burden of this truth was a heavier load than any business failure could ever be.
I had to see it for myself. I went to David's apartment, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I found him in a small, dimly lit room, surrounded by unpacked boxes. He was unshaven, his eyes hollow.
He didn't yell or curse my name. He just looked, broken. "You were right about us," he said, his voice flat. "We were weak.
We let Dad's voice in our heads tell us we deserved everything, that you were a threat."
He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw no hatred, only a profound regret.
He pitted us against each other from the start, Clara. And we were too stupid to realize we were on the same side. Hearing him say it, acknowledging the toxic dynamic our father had created, was a seismic shift.
Seeing David so utterly defeated, hearing his confession not as an excuse, but
The turning point wasn't a moment of triumph. It was a moment of shared, heartbreaking clarity. I couldn't undo the ruin, but I could refuse to let it be the final chapter. The old plan, the Phoenix plan, was about destruction. I needed a new plan, one focused on construction.
I called a company-wide meeting at Phoenix Ventures. I stood before my employees.
Our goal is no longer just growth and market dominance. Our goal is to build a company with a conscience.
I was building the company my father should have been, a place that nurtured its people, rather than pitting them against one another. I launched initiatives I had once considered soft, extended parental leave, a company-funded childcare. It was my way of atoning, of pouring a new, stronger foundation, not just for my business, but for my own soul.
The heavy darkness in my chest began to recede.
With the new company ethos taking root, I knew what I had to do. I invited Mark and David back to my office. The air was thick with a decade of unsaid words and fresh pain. I didn't sit behind my imposing desk. I joined them at a small round table.
The past is a burned bridge, I began, my voice steady. We can't cross it. We can only build.
I slid 2 envelopes across the polished surface. Inside were partnership proposals for a new, small...
This is not a handout, I stated firmly. It's a loan. It's a chance to build something with your own hands, for your children.
They looked at the papers, then at each other, and in their eyes, I didn't see the old greed or rivalry. I saw a flicker of the men they might have been, a fragile, hesitant hope that the future could be different from the past.
The war was over. The far more difficult work of peace was on the table.
The conference room was silent, the air thick with the ghosts of every cruel word and betrayed trust.
Mark and David stared at the partnership agreements, the pages seeming to weigh 1,000 pounds each.
Because I realized I was becoming our father, I admitted, the confession feeling both terrifying and freeing. This, I gestured to the contracts, is me refusing to play anymore. This is for Sophie, and for Ben. David let out a shuddering breath, a single tear tracing a path through his stubble. Harrison renewal, he read aloud, his voice cracking, focusing on the small clients, the ones Dad started with. They didn't sign immediately. They took the papers, a fragile, unspoken truce hanging between us like a spider's web.
They called me 3 days later. Their answer was a single, quiet word. Yes.
We met not in my sleek office or their old haunts, but in the neutral territory of a public library's study room.
The air was filled with the smell of old books and quiet hope. We didn't speak of the past. We talked about logistics.
The conversation was awkward, stilted, the trust between us as thin as the pages of the books surrounding us.
I provided a modest seed fund, a structured loan with clear, fair terms, not a gift. Watching them work was a revelation. The bluster and arrogance were gone, burned away in the fire of their failure. Mark, who had always relied on charm and force, was now meticulously comparing supplier invoices late into the night. David was personally calling every neglected client from the old ledgers, his voice humble and sincere. They were laying the first brick of their own redemption, and I was the unlikely, unwilling architect holding the blueprint.
I didn't know if we could ever be a family again, but perhaps we could learn to be respectful colleagues. The change in them sent ripples through the very foundation of my own life.
The cold, hollow victory I had felt began to warm, filling not with gloating, but with a cautious, tentative sense of peace. The nightmares of my father's disapproving glare began to recede, replaced by fleeting dreams of that sandy... At Phoenix Ventures, my employees noticed the shift. The undercurrent of fear that my ruthless reputation had instilled was gone. Our company culture softened, became more human. We were thriving not just on paper, but in spirit.
The most profound ripple came from my niece, Sophie. She showed up at my office one afternoon with her mother for a school project.
Dad says you're the bravest person he knows, she said, her small voice clear in the quiet room. My revenge had built a fortress around me, letting in light and connecting me to a future I had believed was forever lost. The first major test came just 6 months into their operation. A key supplier for their flagship contract went bankrupt overnight,
threatening to derail the entire project and shatter their fragile credibility.
The new versions?
They vanished for 48 hours. Mark used every remaining contact from his old life, calling in favors he had no right to ask. David crunched numbers until dawn, finding every possible efficiency to absorb the financial hit without compromising their word to the client. They came to me not with a problem, but with a solution. They presented a detailed, clear-eyed plan to manage the setback,
showing how they would personally cover the initial overage from their own meager draws until the project was back on track.
I listened, my arms crossed, my expression unreadable. When they finished, the room was silent.
Good, I said. In that one syllable was a universe of acknowledgement. They had faced the fire not as victims, but as partners.
They had been tested, and they had held. The fragile glass of our truce, for the first time, had proven it could withstand pressure.
Our mother, who had watched the destruction of her family from a pained and silent distance, requested my presence for tea. I braced for a lecture on familial duty, for the guilt I knew I deserved.
Instead, she placed her frail, veined hand over mine. "Your father," she began.
He believed hardship built strength. He thought he was forging you all into titans by making you compete for his favor. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a deep, ancient wisdom. He was wrong. She squeezed my hand.
"What you are doing now, Clara, taking the shattered pieces and trying to fit them back together, not because you have to."
Tears I had held back for years finally welled and spilled over. Her approval.
She became our unexpected bridge, a quiet, steady presence who reminded us that the family we were born into.
Exactly 1 year after the partnership was signed, Harrison Renewal finally turned a real, lasting profit. I expected talk of bonuses, growth, or expansion, but what they offered surprised me completely.
They wanted to give every dollar to create a scholarship, honoring our father's complicated name.
The irony was beautiful, turning conflict and exclusion into opportunity, built from hard-won peace.
At the first scholarship ceremony, Mark, David, and I stood together in silence.
There were no speeches, no forced embraces, only a quiet pride filling the space between us. We weren't just rebuilding a business. We were rewriting our family's story with intention and grace. Cleaning the forgotten closet, my hand found a dusty ledger from my father's first year, alone in silence. On the last page, his sharp handwriting waited, a note meant only for us, quietly there. He wrote, "Build something better," a hope he never knew how to speak aloud to me.
For years, I carried his will like judgment.
This ledger felt truer, his private wish for creation, not destruction, guiding us forward gently home. The broken circle of our story slowly closed, edges smoothing into wholeness. At last, together now. After a decade, the weight lifted completely, leaving quiet peace where pain lived inside me finally. Today, Phoenix Ventures and Harrison Renewal stand apart, yet linked by history and a future chosen. We meet over quarterly lunches, debating markets, supply chains, and decisions that shape tomorrow.
And between strategies, we speak of children's games, school plays, and ordinary moments that matter.
The past is a country we no longer live in, though we respect its borders.
This success runs deeper than revenge. Peace earned, not stolen, and far more satisfying.
It is the victory of bridges rebuilt carefully, against odds that once felt impossible.
I look at my brothers now and no longer see enemies, only men shaped by failure.
Our bond survives because it broke once, and we chose, knowingly, to mend it.
My story has no fairy tale ending, no magic moment where pain disappears and we become whole.
Life isn't neat or gentle, but it offers true endings that quietly become new beginnings. This ending begins a legacy I'm proud to pass down, built with intention and care, not shaped by one divisive will, but by collective willpower, shared effort, and resolve. Not an inheritance of wealth, but respect and resilience earned through endurance.
The forgotten daughter is forgotten no more.
We stand as equals now, shaped by the past but never defined by it.
The war is over. The journey was brutal, but the peace I earned finally endures.